Hello everyone, it's Roktan, and I am the ultimate copycat, and welcome to my channel. Doing a new channel intro because I decided to change my moniker because I feel like the ultimate copycat fits me better than the voice built to do voices. And the reason I decided to do that is I kind of realized that imitation isn't entirely the thing with me. It's more, I shouldn't say that I'm a complete copycat, but I am to a large aspect. And the way I describe it is that whenever I find something that I really hone in on in terms of interest, where there be a person and just a regular person that I find the things they say compelling, or by music, or by video games, or even friends, I find themselves very influenced into doing a lot of the things they do, and it makes me kind of feel like I'm copying them to an extent. And I find myself, especially with like social media influencers, I find myself, or celebrities, quoting them, where something they said really resonated with me. And I may not always necessarily say it the same way they did, but I still have take the idea and kind of maybe change the wording a bit sometimes. But sometimes I may not. Sometimes I may not change it at all. But that's kind of that's part of my personality that I realize, is that I've always been kind of copying people. But that's not to say that I don't have my own thoughts and ideas. I do. I just find myself influenced, like a lot of people, by others. And I just find myself, mimicking people a lot. And that's, heavily comes in when I do my singing and vocals. So what this channel is mainly for are two things. One is to show off my vocal talents, as I have been I feel like a pretty darn good singer for many a number of years. It's hard to pinpoint when I really honed in on how on my cleans, like just regular singing. But I know that it was around like maybe the 2000s, maybe sooner or maybe a little later, that I started to developing the ability to do extreme harsh metal vocals. And that's one of my main things, is to show off that talent. And the other is to show my love of video games, as I'm a big video gamer. So ever since I figured out a way to, and I use just the most basic ways of doing it, just because I find it convenient. I really don't want to get into it too complicated unless someone shows me how to do streaming. And I use Twitch, and then I basically do a brief bit of editing and then upload the stream to YouTube. All I do is cut off any dead air at the beginning and the end. That's it. That's pretty much it. Also, what you'll find is in the channel is I've been doing I used to do a lot of podcasts, and then sadly I haven't done one in a long while, though I've always wanted to do one, and I had actually an idea for one. I think I'll talk to my friends that I've tended to do these podcasts with about my idea. But there's been several wrestling podcasts, as I'm a fan of pro wrestling. There's Wrestletrack. There was the Wrestletracks, where we found really bargain basement, super independent wrestling shows, and mostly kind of made fun of them because a lot of them were really stupid hardcore wrestling where they hit each other with fluorescent light tubes and other really dangerous objects that cut themselves up and give themselves lead poisoning, essentially, and just make them bleed all over the place. And I mean, I don't mind some hardcore wrestling, but there's a point where it gets over the top, and that's not all of it was that kind of wrestling. Some of it was more standard, a little more standard fare, but at least the stuff with what it was called Jew, and yes, I'm not kidding, Juggalo Extreme Wrestling was definitely of that variety. And there's also a playlist of role-playing campaign that unfortunately we never finished, doing Vampire the Masquerade with my friends. And there's a very brief series where my friend Ash, who was formerly known as, who went by the name Allie, that's his online moniker, was playing some classic Nintendo games, and for the first time. That's called Allie's Late to the Party. There was a very brief thing I did with a friend named Chris, who was from Wales. He went by the online name Riddler. He wanted to do this thing where we watched, and honestly, this was kind of insane for him, if we actually managed to do it. He wanted to watch all 72 of them Video Nasties. Video Nasties were these infamous mostly B horror movies, exploitation stuff, that were infamously banned and sometimes even burned by the British government around the time of Margaret Thatcher, and one of those please think of the children, all because back then VHS didn't have any anything that was made super independently, at least didn't get MPAA rating, like rated R, rated PG, and stuff like that. And then there's a few random videos. There was a brief podcast that we did where we decided to cover the football season. I think it was like 2002. I might be more wrong, and we called it. My friend named it "Stroke My American Footballs," but because he's the same friend who's from the UK. So people from the UK that were fans of American football. There's been some rants that I've done where I rant about whatever subject I'm passionate about and complain. There's the Wrestle Boys, where me and two of my friends, one of them being Ash, where we decided to watch an entire year of WWE programming. It was 2001 or it was 2002. I'm not sure which. It was one or the other. We never finished that, sadly. We were close, I think. There's the C Show, the long-running wrestling podcast where we could actually talk about mostly WWE. There was one time we did it that where I was able to keep a TNA show we reviewed. A lot of the stuff that we did, a good number of the C Show episodes we used to do on a now dead service called Blip TV, so they're gone. There was a brief also podcast we did about gaming, the gaming industry, called Wabam. That was very brief. Another brief series we did was where we read erotic wrestling fan fiction, which we called Wrestling Fanfic Theater. The first episode was still my favorite. The story of of a male wrestler getting pregnant, which we, at the time, we said was impossible. Actually, it turns out that's not. If you look it up, it actually has happened. Believe it or not. It is weirdly possible. What else? I think that's pretty much most of what you'll... Yeah, that's about it of all the things on the channel. So, I hope you enjoy the content that you find, and hopefully you enjoy mostly my singing. That's my primary... My vocals is my primary thing, and if you want to watch the video game stuff, it's up to you. Unfortunately, it seems nobody wants to, and I don't really understand why. I don't get it. I guess I'm just not that good of a personality. I don't know. Maybe it's the algorithm. I couldn't even tell you. Well, I know this much. When I stream it to Twitch, nobody watches it, it seems. So I couldn't tell. It seems like only after the stream is done does anybody ever watch it. That seems to be the case. But anyway, I like to think of myself as a somewhat of an entertainer. I don't have that very large following. If you look at my subscriptions and my overall views, I'm very tiny and very small fry in the YouTube community. But I do this because I want to. And I hope one day, maybe, especially when it comes to my vocal talents, I'll get somewhat of a following. I don't want to be... I'm a little scared of being too exposed to the point that I start getting, people stalking me online, you know what I mean? That sort of thing. So that's not something that I'm keen on dealing with, but I would like a bigger following, and I would like to potentially get noticed, and I've always wanted to be part of like a band, like a metal band or whatever. Someday, I hope so. Anyways, I hope you enjoy the content that you find here. This has been Roktan, signing off. Slick out.